badge of honor, a story of courage, loyalty, and sacrifice. The rain hammered against the windows of the K-9 training facility in Portland, Oregon, creating a steady percussion that had become the soundtrack to Officer Sarah Chen's life over the past 8 weeks. Inside the training arena, a 2-year-old German shepherd named Rex executed a perfect search pattern, his nose working methodically across the mock crime scene, his muscular body moving with purpose and precision. Sarah watched from the observation deck, her arms crossed, her expression a mixture of pride and concern. Rex was exceptional, arguably the most talented dog she had trained in her 12 years as a K-9 handler. His drive was unprecedented, his intelligence remarkable, his courage unwavering. But there was something else there too, something that both impressed and worried her. An intensity that bordered on recklessness, a willingness to put himself in harm's way that suggested he understood the job better than most human officers. "He's ready," said Lieutenant Marcus Johnson, appearing beside Sarah with 2 cups of terrible facility coffee. "More than ready. You know it, I know it, and I think Rex knows it too." Sarah accepted the coffee without taking her eyes off Rex, who had just located the hidden contraband and was now sitting perfectly still, his alert posture signaling his find to his handler in training. "He's only 2 years old, Marcus. Most dogs don't go active duty until they're at least 3. Most dogs aren't Rex," Marcus replied. "The department needs him, Sarah. Crime is up 20% this year. We've got a fentanyl epidemic that's killing people daily. And we just lost Duke to retirement. We can't afford to wait another year." Sarah knew he was right, but that didn't make it easier. Training police dogs was her job, but she loved each one like they were her own. And Rex was special. She had known it from the moment she first saw him at the breeder's facility in Germany. A gangly puppy with eyes that seemed to look right through you, assessing, calculating, understanding. The breeder, Klaus Muller, had pulled Sarah aside before the transaction was finalized. "This one," he had said in heavily accented English, "he is different. He comes from a line of working dogs going back 5 generations. His great-grandfather was a legend in the Berlin police force, saved 17 lives, died protecting his handler from an armed suspect. Rex has that same, how do you say, fire inside him. He will be extraordinary, but he will need a handler who understands that he is not just a tool. He is a warrior." Sarah had understood then, and she understood now. Rex wasn't just a dog doing a job. He was a dedicated officer who happened to have 4 legs instead of 2. "All right," Sarah finally said, setting down the coffee cup. "Let's get him certified, but I'm choosing his handler myself. No negotiations." Marcus smiled. "I wouldn't have it any other way." Detective Michael Torres was not having a good day. At 34, he was one of the youngest detectives in the Portland Police Bureau's Narcotics and Organized Crime Division. a position he had earned through a combination of natural talent, relentless work ethic, and a case closure rate that made his colleagues jealous. But his success came with a price. He worked alone, trusted no one completely, and had a reputation for being difficult to partner with, which was why he was currently standing in Captain Rodriguez's office, trying to understand why he was being assigned a K9 partner. With all due respect, Captain, I don't need a dog, Michael said, struggling to keep his voice level. I work undercover. I infiltrate organizations. You can't exactly bring a German shepherd into a cartel meeting. Captain Elena Rodriguez leaned back in her chair, her expression one of practiced patience. Detective Torres, you've been shot at 3 times in the past year. You've gone radio silent for hours during operations. Last month, you walked into a situation without backup that could have gotten you killed. You're brilliant, but you're also reckless. And frankly, you're burning out. I'm fine. You're not fine, Rodriguez interrupted. You haven't taken a vacation in 2 years. Your partner requests keep getting denied because no one wants to work with you. And I'm starting to worry that your lone wolf routine is going to get you killed. Michael clenched his jaw. Everything she was saying was true, but that didn't make it easier to hear. A K9 partner isn't like a human partner, Rodriguez continued, her voice softening slightly. Rex won't question your methods. He won't file complaints about your communication style, but he will have your back, unconditionally. He'll detect drugs you might miss. He'll sense danger before you do. And maybe, just maybe, having something to protect other than yourself will make you think twice before charging into a situation alone. When do I meet him? Michael asked quietly. Rodriguez smiled. Right now. Sarah Chen is waiting for you at the K9 facility. The first meeting did not go well. Michael arrived at the facility with his usual confidence, prepared to go through the motions of what he assumed would be a few training sessions before he could convince Rodriguez to let him work alone again. Sarah met him at the entrance, her expression professional but guarded. You're late, she said by way of greeting. Traffic, Michael lied. Sarah didn't call him on it. Follow me. Rex is in the training yard. They walked in silence through the facility, Sarah's pace brisk and purposeful. Michael studied her late 30s, fit, with the kind of calm competence that came from years of experience. She wore her authority lightly, but it was there nonetheless, in the set of her shoulders and the directness of her gaze. The training yard was massive, filled with obstacle courses, mock buildings, and various training equipment. In the center, sitting at perfect attention, was Rex. Michael stopped walking. He had seen police dogs before, had even worked alongside K9 units on a few occasions. But Rex was different. The dog was large even for a German shepherd, with a thick coat of black and tan fur and eyes that were almost unsettlingly intelligent. As Michael approached, Rex's gaze locked onto him, assessing him with an intensity that made Michael feel like he was the one being evaluated. "Rex, this is Detective Tors," Sarah said. "Michael, this is Rex." Michael extended his hand, then felt foolish. What was he supposed to do? Shake the dog's paw? But Rex surprised him. The dog rose to his feet, walked over with measured steps, and sat directly in front of Michael. Then he lifted one paw and placed it gently in Michael's outstretched hand. Despite himself, Michael smiled. "Smart dog." "He's more than smart," Sarah said. "He's extraordinary. Rex has passed every certification with perfect scores. His detection rate is 98%. His apprehension skills are flawless. His tracking ability is better than any dog I've trained in 12 years. But more than that, he has something you can't train: judgment. He knows when to be aggressive and when to hold back. He understands context in a way most dogs never do." Michael knelt down so he was eye level with Rex. The dog regarded him calmly, not breaking eye contact. "The question is," Sarah continued, "whether you're worthy of being his partner." Michael looked up sharply. "Excuse me." "You heard me. Rex is going to put his life on the line for you every single day. He's going to trust you to make good decisions, to not put him in unnecessary danger, to treat him as a partner and not just a tool. So I need to know, are you up for that responsibility?" Michael stood, his initial irritation giving way to something else. Respect, maybe. "I work alone because I don't want anyone else getting hurt because of my decisions. If something goes wrong, I'm the only one who pays the price." "That's noble," Sarah said, "but it's also arrogant. You're not invincible, detective. And whether you like it or not, the cases you work affect other people. Rex can help you be better at your job. He can keep you alive, but only if you let him." Michael looked back down at Rex, who was still sitting patiently, waiting for a command, a sign, any indication of what was expected of him. "All right," Michael said finally. "Let's see what he can do." Sarah's expression didn't change, but Michael thought he saw approval in her eyes. "Training starts tomorrow at 0600. Don't be late this time." The training period was supposed to last 6 weeks. They completed it in 4. Michael had never been one to do things halfway, and once he committed to working with Rex, he threw himself into the partnership with the same intensity he brought to his cases. He studied canine behavior, learned the hand signals and verbal commands, spent hours working with Sarah on building trust and communication with Rex. But what surprised Michael most was how quickly Rex adapted to him. The dog seemed to understand Michael's moods, his working style, even his thought processes. When Michael was tense, Rex stayed alert but calm, a steadying presence. When Michael was focused, Rex mirrored that focus. And when Michael was in danger, which Sarah simulated frequently during training, Rex transformed into something fierce and protective, a force of nature willing to do whatever it took to keep his partner safe. "He's bonded with you," Sarah said one afternoon, watching as Michael and Rex flawlessly executed a building search. faster than I've ever seen. Usually, it takes months to build this level of trust. You two did it in weeks. Michael, who was rewarding Rex with his favorite tug toy, glanced over. He makes it easy. It's like he knows what I'm thinking before I think it. That's because he's reading you constantly, Sarah explained. Your body language, your breathing, your heart rate, he picks up on all of it. And he's using that information to anticipate your needs. It's what makes great police dogs great. But Rex does it better than any dog I've ever worked with. As if understanding he was being praised, Rex wagged his tail and pressed against Michael's leg, his tongue lolling happily. Michael found himself smiling, something that had become more common in the past few weeks. When can we go active? Captain Rodriguez wants to do a final evaluation next week. If you pass, and I have no doubt you'll be certified for patrol and narcotics work. After that, you're operational. Michael nodded, running his hand through Rex's thick fur. The dog leaned into the touch, his eyes half closed in contentment. "Hey, Rex," Michael said quietly. "You ready to catch some bad guys?" Rex's ears perked up, and he barked once, sharply, a sound of unmistakable enthusiasm. Sarah laughed. "I think that's a yes." Their first real case came 3 days after certification. Michael's phone rang at 2 in the morning, jolting him awake. Rex, who slept on a dog bed beside Michael's bed, Sarah, had insisted on it for bonding purposes, was instantly alert, his ears forward. "Tours," Michael answered groggily. "We've got a situation." It was Captain Rodriguez, and she sounded stressed. "Major fentanyl operation, Warehouse District. Anonymous tip came in an hour ago. SWAT is staging, but they need K9 for drug detection and potential suspect apprehension. How fast can you and Rex get there?" Michael was already out of bed, reaching for his clothes. 20 minutes. Make it 15. This is big, Tours. Could be the biggest bust we've had all year. Michael hung up and looked at Rex, who was standing now, tail wagging slightly, sensing the energy in the room. "You ready for this, partner?" Rex barked softly, and Michael could have sworn the dog was smiling. They made it in 12 minutes. The Warehouse District was a maze of old industrial buildings near the waterfront, a place where legitimate businesses mixed with criminal enterprises in a delicate ecosystem of willful ignorance. Michael parked his unmarked SUV 2 blocks from the staging area and suited Rex up in his police vest, a ballistic vest that identified him as a police K9 and offered some protection from weapons. The staging area was controlled chaos. SWAT officers in tactical gear checked weapons and went over floor plans. Uniformed officers established a perimeter. And in the center of it all stood Captain Rodriguez, coordinating the operation with the calm efficiency of someone who had done this 100 times before. "Tours good," she said when she spotted Michael and Rex. "Here's the situation. Warehouse 3 buildings east of here. We have intel that it's being used to cut and package fentanyl for distribution, potentially hundreds of kilos inside. The problem is, we don't know the exact layout, how many suspects are inside, or where the drugs are stored. That's where Rex comes in. Michael nodded, his hand resting on Rex's head. The dog was perfectly still, focused, professional. You want us to do a preliminary search before SWAT goes in? Negative, too dangerous. SWAT goes in first, secures the building. Then you and Rex go in and locate the drugs. But stay alert. We're not sure we'll get everyone on the first sweep. Understood. The operation kicked off 15 minutes later with the precision of a well-rehearsed dance. SWAT breached the main entrance, flashbangs lighting up the night, shouts of police. Get down, echoing across the empty streets. Michael and Rex waited at a safe distance, both tense with anticipation. It took 8 minutes for SWAT to radio the all-clear. 3 suspects in custody, building secure, ready for K9. Michael and Rex entered through the same breached door, Rex's nose already working, processing thousands of scents simultaneously with the efficiency of a biological supercomputer. The warehouse was enormous, filled with pallets of legitimate merchandise that served as cover for the real business. Find it, Rex, Michael commanded, using the search command Sarah had drilled into both of them. Find the drugs. Rex went to work, methodical and thorough, weaving between pallets, checking containers, his tail held high in concentration. Michael followed, weapon drawn, but pointed at the ground, trusting Rex to alert him to any threats. They were 3 minutes into the search when Rex's behavior changed. His body went rigid, his tail dropped, and a low growl rumbled from his chest, not the alert signal for drugs, but his warning signal for danger. Michael's training kicked in. He raised his weapon, scanning the area. Show me, Rex. Rex moved forward slowly, toward a section of the warehouse that appeared empty. But as they got closer, Michael saw it, a door partially concealed behind a stack of crates, slightly ajar. Michael keyed his radio. Tours to command. I've got a concealed room east side of the building. Rex is alerting danger, requesting backup. Copy that. SWAT en route to your position. But before they could arrive, the door burst open, and a man emerged, wild-eyed and desperate, a pistol in his hand. Time seemed to slow. Michael saw the gun coming up, aimed at him. He started to raise his own weapon, knowing he wouldn't be fast enough. And then Rex was moving. The dog launched himself forward with explosive power, 75 pounds of muscle and determination. He hit the gunman's arm just as the trigger was pulled, the shot going wide, slamming into a wall 3 feet from Michael's head. The impact of Rex's attack sent the gun flying, and before the suspect could recover, Rex had him on the ground, powerful jaws locked around the man's arm, not biting hard enough to cause serious injury, but with enough pressure to completely immobilize him. Don't move, Michael shouted, his weapon now trained on the downed suspect. Rex, hold. Rex maintained his grip, perfectly controlled, while Michael kicked the gun away and radioed for assistance. Within seconds, SWAT officers flooded the area, taking the suspect into custody. Only when another officer had cuffed the suspect did Michael give the release command. Rex, out. Good boy. Come. Rex released immediately, returning to Michael's side, tail wagging, looking enormously pleased with himself. There was blood on his muzzle, the suspect's, not his own, but he seemed completely unconcerned. Michael knelt down, his hands shaking slightly as the adrenaline began to fade, and pulled Rex into a hug. You saved my life, partner. Thank you. Rex licked Michael's face, his tail wagging so hard his entire back end was moving. The search of the concealed room revealed what the suspect had been protecting. Over 400 kilograms of fentanyl, worth millions, on the street. It was the largest single bust in Portland's history, but Michael barely noticed the accolades that followed. The congratulations from fellow officers, the press conference where Captain Rodriguez praised the department's K-9 unit. All he could think about was the moment when Rex had put himself between Michael and a bullet, without hesitation, without fear, driven by a loyalty that Michael was only beginning to understand. That night, instead of the dog bed on the floor, Rex slept on Michael's bed. And Michael didn't protest. Over the following months, Michael and Rex became legendary within the Portland Police Bureau. They cracked case after case, their success rate climbing to numbers that seemed almost impossible. Rex's ability to detect drugs was uncanny. He found heroin hidden in engine blocks, cocaine concealed in false bottom suitcases, methamphetamine buried in backyard gardens. His tracking ability was even more impressive. He once tracked a suspect for 3 miles through urban terrain, never losing the scent despite rain, traffic, and the suspect's attempts to throw him off. But it was Rex's judgment that truly set him apart. He seemed to understand the difference between a dangerous situation and a controlled one, between a real threat and a false alarm. There were incidents where suspects surrendered the moment they saw Rex, intimidated by his size and obvious competence. And there were other incidents where Rex's aggressive intervention was the only thing standing between Michael and serious harm. Michael found himself changing too. The isolation that had defined his career began to crack. He started accepting invitations to departmental events. He made small talk with other officers. He even agreed to mentor a rookie detective, sharing the lessons he had learned not just from his years on the force, but from his partnership with Rex. "You're different," Sarah Chen observed one afternoon when she stopped by for Rex's quarterly health check. Happier. Michael, who was watching Rex play with a rubber Kong in the training yard, considered this. "I think I am. Having a partner who doesn't judge, doesn't question, just trusts and supports. It's made me realize how much energy I was wasting trying to do everything alone. Sarah smiled. That's what K9 partners do. They teach us to be better people, often without us even realizing it. He's more than a partner, though, Michael said quietly. He's family. I know, Sarah replied. I saw it the first day you met. The way he looked at you, he chose you, just as much as you chose him. As if hearing his name, Rex trotted over, dropping his toy at Michael's feet in a clear invitation to play. Michael picked it up and threw it across the yard, watching as Rex bounded after it with puppyish enthusiasm, despite his now 3 years of age. Hey, Sarah, Michael said, thank you for pushing me to accept this partnership. I didn't want it at first, but now I can't imagine doing this job without him. Sarah placed a hand on Michael's shoulder. Just promise me you'll keep him safe. Rex would die for you without hesitation. Make sure it never comes to that. Michael nodded, the weight of that responsibility settling over him like a familiar coat. I promise. The promise would be tested 6 months later, on a cold November night that started like any other call, but would end up changing everything. The case had been building for weeks. A major trafficking operation run by the Sinaloa cartel, using Portland as a distribution hub for the Pacific Northwest. Michael had been working undercover for months, slowly building trust, gathering intelligence, waiting for the right moment to strike. That moment came when his contact, a mid-level dealer named Carlos, invited him to a meeting with the operation's local boss. It was the break Michael had been waiting for, the opportunity to get direct evidence on the leadership. There was just one problem. Carlos had specifically said no wires, no backup, and definitely no cops within a 5-block radius. The cartel had sophisticated counter-surveillance, and any hint of police presence would blow the operation. Michael sat in Captain Rodriguez's office, Rex at his feet, arguing his case. I can do this, he insisted. Carlos trusts me. This is our chance to take down the entire network. It's too dangerous, Rodriguez countered. You'll be completely isolated, no backup, no way for us to help if things go south. I can't authorize it. Then don't authorize it, Michael said. I'll go in on my own time, as a concerned citizen who happened to stumble into criminal activity. Rodriguez glared at him. That's the kind of cowboy mentality that's going to get you killed, Tors. Captain, with respect, this is what I do. It's what I'm good at, and I'll never get another chance like this. They argued for another 20 minutes before Rodriguez finally, reluctantly, agreed on one condition. Rex goes with you. What? No, Carlos said, come alone. Then you take Rex and keep him in the car, close enough to respond if you need him, but far enough to maintain your cover. That's my final offer, Tors. Take it, or I shut down the operation right now. Michael looked down at Rex, who was watching the exchange with alert interest. The dog had become his shadow over the past year, accompanying him everywhere sleeping beside his bed, riding in his car, even sitting in on briefings. The idea of walking into a dangerous situation without Rex nearby felt wrong. "All right," Michael agreed. He stays in the car. The meeting was set for an abandoned industrial complex on the outskirts of Portland. The kind of place where screams wouldn't carry and bodies could disappear without questions. Michael arrived 30 minutes early, parking his SUV in a position that gave him a clear view of the meeting location while providing some concealment. "You stay here, buddy," Michael told Rex, who was in his usual spot in the back of the vehicle. "I know you don't like it, but this is how it has to be. If I need you, I'll call. Otherwise, you wait. Understood?" Rex whined softly, his ears back, a clear sign of distress. He didn't like being separated from Michael, especially not in a situation that felt dangerous. Michael reached back and scratched behind Rex's ears. "I know. I'll be fine. Just a quick meeting, get the evidence we need, and we're out." 30 minutes tops. He checked his concealed weapon, a small 9 in an ankle holster, easily missed in a pat-down, and the recording device sewn into his jacket lining. Then, with one last look at Rex, he stepped out of the vehicle and walked toward his fate. The meeting location was a warehouse that looked like it hadn't been used in years. Broken windows, graffiti-covered walls, the kind of desolation that cities accumulated in their forgotten corners. Carlos was waiting outside, smoking a cigarette, looking nervous. "You're early," Carlos said by way of greeting. "Wanted to make sure I wasn't walking into anything," Michael replied, playing his role. Carlos laughed without humor. "Smart. Come on, the boss is inside." They walked through the warehouse, their footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. In the center, illuminated by a few battery-powered lanterns, was a table with 3 men sitting around it. Michael recognized one immediately from surveillance photos. Javier Morno, the regional boss for the Sinaloa cartel's Pacific Northwest operations. "So you're the buyer Carlos has been telling me about," Morno said, his English perfect, but accented. He was a small man, elegantly dressed despite the surroundings, with eyes that had seen too much death to be impressed by much of anything. "I am," Michael replied, matching Morno's casual tone. "I represent a group interested in expanding operations into eastern Oregon and parts of Idaho. We need a reliable supply, and you have the money for such an expansion." "I do." Morno studied him for a long moment. "You know, I didn't get to where I am by being careless. Before we talk business, I need to be sure you are who you say you are." "I understand. What do you need?" "Strip." Michael's blood went cold, but he kept his expression neutral. "Excuse me. You heard me. Remove your clothes. All of them. I need to verify you're not wearing a wire." Michael's mind raced. The recording device was sophisticated, nearly impossible to detect visually. But if they patted him down thoroughly, they'd find it. And if they found it, he was dead. But if he refused, his cover was blown anyway. "Fine," Michael said, starting to remove his jacket. He was down to his pants when one of Morno's men, a large, scarred enforcer, started to pat him down. The man's hands were thorough, professional. When they reached Michael's ankle, they paused. "Boss," the enforcer said, "he's armed." In retrospect, Michael would realize that was when everything went wrong. If he had just accepted being disarmed, played it off as standard caution, things might have ended differently. But his training kicked in, his instinct for survival, and his hand moved toward the weapon. He never reached it. The enforcer's fist caught him in the stomach, driving the air from his lungs. Michael went down hard, gasping, and when he looked up, there were 3 guns pointed at his head. "A cop," Morno said, his voice disappointed rather than angry. "Carlos, you brought me a cop." "I didn't know," Carlos protested, backing away. "I swear, Javier, I didn't know. It doesn't matter now." Morno stood, brushing off his pants. "Kill them both. Make it look like a deal gone bad. The bodies won't be found for weeks in this place." Michael tried to speak, to buy time, to do anything. But the enforcer hit him again, and the world went dark around the edges. He thought about Rodriguez, about how right she had been. He thought about Sarah, about his promise to keep Rex safe. And he thought about Rex, waiting in the car, alone. As consciousness started to fade, Michael did the only thing he could think of. He pressed the emergency alert on his watch, a signal that would notify dispatch of an officer in distress and provide GPS coordinates. And then he did something he'd never done before in his entire career. He called for help. "Rex," he whispered, barely audible. "Rex, help." In the SUV, parked 300 yards away, Rex's head snapped up. He had been sitting in his usual spot, uncomfortable with the separation, but obedient to Michael's command to stay. But now something was different. He couldn't see Michael. The warehouse was too far away, but he could sense something was wrong. His partner was in danger. Rex whined, packing in the confined space of the vehicle. Every instinct screamed at him to go, to find Michael, to protect him. But he had been told to stay. The conflict was agonizing, and then he heard it faint, distant, carried on the night wind, but unmistakable. Michael's voice, calling his name. The command to stay was forgotten. Rex hit the button that Michael had installed to allow emergency egress. A simple mechanism Rex had been trained to use, and the door popped open. The dog launched himself out of the vehicle and hit the ground running, his powerful legs eating up the distance, his nose already tracking Michael's scent. Inside the warehouse, Michael was on his knees, hands zip-tied behind his back, the barrel of a gun pressed against his temple. He had bought a few minutes by claiming to have information about other operations, but Morno was running out of patience. "Last chance," Morno said. "Who else knows about this meeting?" "Just me," Michael lied, hoping it would buy more time. Morno sighed. Then you're no use to me. Goodbye, detective. The gunman's finger started to tighten on the trigger, and then the warehouse doors exploded inward as 75 pounds of furious German shepherd came through them like a missile. Rex had found a broken window, squeezed through it despite the cuts it caused, and now launched himself at the nearest threat to his partner. His jaws closed around the gunman's wrist with crushing force, the weapon firing harmlessly into the ceiling as the man screamed. Everything erupted into chaos. Morno and his men scattered, pulling weapons, shouting orders. Rex released the first gunman and went for the second, moving with a speed and ferocity that was almost supernatural. The enforcer who had beaten Michael tried to shoot the dog, but Rex was too fast, too well trained. He dodged, pivoted, and took the man down with a perfectly executed bite to the leg. Carlos ran. Morno tried to, but Rex cut him off, his teeth bared in a snarl that promised death if the cartel boss moved one more inch. Michael, his hands still bound, struggled to his feet. Rex, guard. Rex immediately switched from attack mode to guard mode, positioning himself between Michael and the threats, his body tense and ready, but not actively engaging unless provoked. In the distance, sirens wailed back up, responding to the emergency alert. Morno looked at the dog, then at Michael, calculating his options. He chose poorly, reaching for a weapon. Rex was on him before the gun cleared its holster, powerful jaws, closing around Morno's arm with enough force to shatter bone. The cartel boss screamed, dropping the weapon, and Rex drove him to the ground, maintaining his grip until Michael gave the command to release. By the time backup arrived, SWAT, patrol units, and a very angry Captain Rodriguez, the scene was secured. 3 suspects in custody, 1 in the wind, and 1 absolutely magnificent police dog sitting at attention beside his partner. Blood on his muzzle, but otherwise unharmed. Sarah Chen, who had insisted on responding when she heard Rex had gone active without his handler, ran into the warehouse and stopped short at the scene. "Michael, are you hurt?" "I'm fine," Michael said, though his ribs disagreed. Thanks to Rex. Sarah knelt beside the dog, her hands quickly but gently checking for injuries. She found several cuts from the broken window, minor but needing attention. "Rex, you brave, stupid, wonderful dog. You're supposed to wait for your handler, not charge in alone." Rex wagged his tail, completely unconcerned. "He saved my life," Michael said quietly. "I was dead. They were going to execute me. And Rex, he came anyway. Even though I told him to stay, he knew I was in trouble and he came." Sarah looked up at him, and Michael was startled to see tears in her eyes. That's what K9 partners do. They don't abandon their team. Ever. Rodriguez appeared, her expression a mixture of relief and fury. "Tors, we need to talk." But first, she looked at Rex, who was still sitting at attention despite his injuries. Good dog. Very good dog. Rex's tail wagged harder. The aftermath of that night rippled through the Portland Police Bureau for months. The operation, despite its near-catastrophic ending, was ultimately successful. Morneau and his associates were arrested, charged with enough crimes to ensure they'd never see freedom again. The evidence Michael had gathered, combined with what they found at the warehouse, dismantled the cartel's Pacific Northwest operations entirely. Michael was reprimanded for going into the situation without proper backup. But the reprimand was administrative theater. Everyone knew he'd gotten results that justified the risk, even if no one wanted to officially endorse his methods. But the real hero, in the eyes of both the department and the public, was Rex. The story spread quickly. Police dog saves handler's life, single-handedly takes down cartel enforcers, displays courage beyond measure. News crews wanted interviews. The mayor wanted a photo op. Children's groups wanted Rex to visit schools. Through it all, Rex remained the same steady, professional, slightly goofy dog he had always been. He accepted the attention with patient tolerance, much more interested in playing with his Kong toy or going for runs with Michael than in being celebrated. But Michael noticed changes in himself. The incident had shaken something loose in him, some final wall of isolation he'd been maintaining. He found himself calling his estranged sister for the first time in 3 years. He started seeing a department therapist, working through the trauma of nearly being executed and the guilt of putting Rex in danger. He even went on a date, a first in longer than he cared to admit, and his relationship with Rex deepened in ways he couldn't quite articulate. It was no longer just handler and K9. It was partner in the truest sense, family, a bond that had been forged in training and tested in fire and emerged stronger than steel. Sarah noticed it during one of their regular check-ins, watching as Michael and Rex moved through a training exercise with perfect synchronization. "You two have become one unit," she observed. "I've never seen a handler dog team this connected. It's like you share a brain." Michael smiled, giving Rex the release command and rewarding him with enthusiastic play. "He knows me better than I know myself sometimes. I'll think about going left, and he's already moving that direction. It's uncanny." "It's trust," Sarah said. "Complete, absolute trust. He trusts you to make good decisions. You trust him to have your back. That's the foundation of every great partnership." "I almost got him killed," Michael said quietly, the guilt still sharp despite months passing. "If something had happened to him because of my choices." "But it didn't," Sarah interrupted gently. "And you learned from it. You're more careful now. You take backup. You think before acting. Rex changed you, Michael. Made you better. That's not something to feel guilty about. It's something to honor by continuing to be worthy of his loyalty." Michael watched Rex, who was now sprawled on his side, tongue lolling, completely content. I used to think I was better off alone. That caring about people or dogs made you vulnerable. But Rex taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's strength. The willingness to love something enough to risk losing it, that's the bravest thing anyone can do. Sarah smiled. Now you're getting it. 2 years after that night in the warehouse, Michael and Rex were still going strong. They had become one of the most successful K9 teams in the department's history, with a case closure rate that bordered on miraculous. But more than the statistics, it was the quality of their work that impressed their colleagues. They were thorough, careful, strategic. Michael had learned to balance his natural aggression with caution, and Rex had learned to temper his protective instincts with judgment. They worked narcotics cases, missing persons cases, search and rescue operations. Rex found a missing child who had wandered away from a camping site, tracking her for 5 miles through dense forest. He detected drugs in a shipment at the port that turned out to be part of a human trafficking operation, leading to 17 arrests and the rescue of 9 victims. He even helped locate evidence in a cold case homicide, finding a weapon buried in a suspect's yard that had been missed by multiple previous searches. But their finest moment came on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon that turned extraordinary. They were responding to a domestic disturbance call, routine work, usually handled by patrol. But they were in the area, and backup was 10 minutes out. The call was at a residential house in a quiet neighborhood. Neighbors reporting screams and sounds of violence. Michael and Rex arrived to find the front door open, signs of a struggle visible from the street. Following protocol, Michael called for backup and prepared to wait. But then they heard it, a child screaming, young, terrified, and in pain. Michael looked at Rex. Rex looked at Michael. Every rule of procedure said wait for backup. But that child was in danger right now, and every second could matter. We go in quiet, Michael told Rex. Alert only. No engagement unless absolutely necessary. Rex's tail lowered, his body language shifting to working mode, and they entered the house together. The scene inside was nightmare fuel. A man drunk or high, Michael couldn't tell which, had his wife cornered in the kitchen, a knife in his hand. In the living room, a little girl, maybe 6 years old, was huddled under a table, crying. Police, Michael announced, his weapon drawn. Drop the knife. The man spun, his eyes wild. Get out. This is my house, my family. I understand, but I need you to put down the knife so we can talk about this. I said get out. The man lunged, not at Michael, but at his wife, the knife coming up. Michael couldn't get a clear shot. Too many civilians, too much chaos. But Rex could act. The dog launched forward with the precision of a guided missile, hitting the man's knife arm and driving him to the ground. The blade went flying. Rex maintained his grip, controlled and professional, while Michael secured the suspect. The wife collapsed, sobbing. The little girl ran from under the table and threw herself at Michael, clinging to him like a lifeline. "You're safe now," Michael told her, holstering his weapon and awkwardly patting her back with one hand while keeping the other on his cuffed suspect. "You're safe." Backup arrived moments later. Patrol officers who secured the scene, paramedics who checked the family for injuries, child services who made arrangements for the little girl. Through it all, Rex sat calmly, letting the child pet him, providing comfort in the way only dogs can. As they were leaving, the little girl ran up to Rex and hugged him fiercely around the neck. "Thank you for saving my mommy," she whispered into his fur. Rex licked her face gently, his tail wagging. Michael found himself blinking back tears as they walked to their vehicle. "That's why we do this," he said to Rex, who was trotting beside him with obvious pride. "That little girl gets to grow up with her mother because of you. Because you were brave and smart and perfect." Rex barked once, happily, and jumped into the SUV. But all stories, even the best ones, must eventually come to an end. Rex was 5 years old, still young for a dog, but K9 work was demanding, and the physical toll accumulated faster than in civilian life. Michael had started noticing small things. Rex taking longer to recover after a long day, occasionally favoring his right front leg, sleeping more deeply. Sarah noticed too. During a routine checkup, she discovered what they'd all been dreading: early signs of arthritis in Rex's hips and front shoulder, likely from the accumulated impact of his work. "It's not severe yet," Sarah explained, showing Michael the X-rays. "But it will progress. Within a year, maybe 2, he'll need to retire from active duty. The jumping, the chasing, the physical demands, it's too much stress on joints that are starting to wear out." Michael stared at the X-rays, seeing the evidence of Rex's sacrifice literally etched into his bones. "Is he in pain?" "Not significant pain, not yet. We can manage it with medication and physical therapy. But Michael, you need to start thinking about what comes next. Rex has given the department 5 years of exemplary service. He's earned a peaceful retirement. He's only 5 years old," Michael protested, even though he knew Sarah was right. "He's got years left." "He does," Sarah agreed. "But they should be years of playing in the park and sleeping on comfortable beds and being spoiled rotten by his partner. Not years of chasing down suspects and jumping through windows." That night, Michael sat on his couch with Rex's head in his lap, gently massaging the dog's shoulders. Rex groaned in contentment, his eyes half closed. "You've earned your rest, buddy," Michael said quietly. "More than earned it. But I'm not ready to stop working with you. Not yet." Rex huffed, as if agreeing. They continued working for another year, but Michael modified their operations. He was more selective about which calls they responded to, more cautious about situations that might require Rex to exert himself. He started training with a young German shepherd named Max, preparing for the eventual transition, but his heart wasn't in it. Max was smart and eager and talented, but he wasn't Rex. The decision was made for them on a cold February morning. They were executing a search warrant at a suspected drug house when Rex alerted on a hidden compartment. As he was investigating, the floor, rotted and weak, gave way beneath him. Rex fell 8 feet into a basement, landing hard. Michael's heart stopped. He was down the stairs in seconds, finding Rex lying on his side, conscious but clearly hurt. "Don't move, buddy," Michael said, his hands gentle as he checked for injuries. "Backup is coming. We're going to get you out of here." Rex whined softly, trying to stand, but his right front leg wouldn't bear weight. The veterinary emergency team arrived within minutes. Sarah had made sure the department had protocols for injured canines. They stabilized Rex and transported him to the specialized animal hospital that worked with the police department. The diagnosis was a torn ligament and exacerbation of his existing arthritis. Surgery would repair the ligament, but combined with the arthritis, Rex's career as a police dog was over. Michael sat in the hospital waiting room while Rex was in surgery, his head in his hands. Sarah sat beside him, a comforting presence in the sterile space. "He's going to be okay," she said. "The surgery is routine. He'll heal." "I should have retired him earlier," Michael said, his voice thick with guilt. "I knew his joints were deteriorating. I couldn't let go." "Michael, listen to me," Sarah said firmly. "Rex loved his work. He loved being your partner. You gave him the best possible life a working dog could have. But now it's time for the next chapter. And that chapter can be just as good, maybe even better. He gets to just be a dog now, your dog." "He's always been my dog," Michael said quietly. "Then take him home. Give him the retirement he's earned. And know that he lived exactly the life he was meant to live, serving, protecting, and loving his partner unconditionally." Rex's retirement was marked with a ceremony at the police bureau, a full honor guard, speeches from the captain and the mayor, a medal of valor presented by the chief himself. Rex tolerated it all with patient dignity, much more interested in the special treats Sarah had brought than in the accolades. But the real celebration happened that evening, in Michael's backyard, with just the two of them. Michael had set up a small agility course, nothing demanding, just for fun. He'd bought Rex's favorite treats in bulk, and he'd installed a custom dog bed in every room of his house, ensuring Rex would always have a comfortable place to rest. They played for hours, Michael throwing tennis balls at a gentle pace, Rex retrieving them with obvious joy despite his limp. They practiced old commands just for the pleasure of working together. And as the sun set, they sat together on the porch, Rex's head on Michael's lap, watching the sky change colors. "You know," Michael said, scratching behind Rex's ears, "I never thanked you properly. Not just for saving my life, though that was pretty significant, but for saving me in other ways, making me a better person, teaching me that I don't have to do everything alone, showing me what real loyalty looks like. Rex's tail thumped against the porch. "I know you don't understand all the words," Michael continued, "but I think you understand the feeling. You changed my life, Rex, made it bigger and better and fuller than I ever thought possible. And now I get to spend however many years we have left just being your person, without any of the danger or the stress. Just you and me, partner." Rex lifted his head and licked Michael's face, then settled back down with a contented sigh. They sat there as the stars came out. Man and dog, partner and partner, family. 5 years passed. Rex lived them fully, the way dogs do, finding joy in simple things: morning walks at the park, afternoon naps in sunny spots, evening play sessions with Michael. His arthritis progressed, but medication and care kept him comfortable. His muzzle turned completely gray. His movements became slower, more careful, but his eyes remained bright, and his tail still wagged whenever Michael came home. Michael had eventually taken a new K9 partner, Max, who had matured into an excellent police dog. But Max lived at the training facility, keeping work and home separate. Home belonged to Rex. On a warm spring morning, 10 years after that first meeting at the K9 facility, Rex didn't get up for breakfast. Michael found him still lying on his bed, breathing, but clearly in distress. He called Sarah immediately, knowing what this meant, but not ready to accept it. She arrived within the hour, her bag already prepared for what they both knew was coming. "His heart is failing," she said gently after examining Rex. "I can try to stabilize him, maybe buy a few more days. But Michael, he's tired. He's had a good life, a long life for a working dog, but he's ready." Michael knelt beside Rex's bed, his hand resting on the dog's side, feeling the labored breathing, the weakness that had finally caught up with his warrior. "Hey, buddy," Michael said softly. "You've been such a good boy, the best boy. You've earned your rest." Rex's tail moved slightly, a final acknowledgement. "I'm going to miss you so much," Michael continued, tears streaming down his face now. "But I understand. You fought enough battles, saved enough lives. It's okay to let go now." Sarah prepared the injection with practiced efficiency, her own eyes wet. "When you're ready, just say the word." Michael took a deep breath. "Rex, you've been the best partner anyone could ask for. You taught me what it means to be loyal, to be brave, to love without reservation. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for everything." He looked at Sarah and nodded. She administered the injection gently, and within seconds, Rex's breathing eased. The pain left his face. His body relaxed into a peace he had earned, and then he was gone. Michael stayed there for a long time, his hand on Rex's still form, saying goodbye to the dog who had saved his life in more ways than one. They buried Rex at the K9 Memorial Garden at the training facility, a place reserved for police dogs who had served with honor. The entire department turned out officers past and present, K9 handlers with their dogs, city officials, and civilians whose lives Rex had touched. Sarah gave the eulogy, speaking of Rex's remarkable career, his incredible courage, his unwavering loyalty. But the most powerful moment came when she invited those present to share their memories. One by one, they came forward. The woman Rex had saved from her abusive husband, now remarried and thriving, with her daughter, now a teenager beside her. The parents of the missing child Rex had found, who brought photos of their daughter's high school graduation. Officers who had worked with Rex on cases, each with a story of his skill and bravery. And finally, Michael stepped forward. "Rex wasn't just my partner," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion. "He was my teacher, my friend, my family. He showed me that strength comes from connection, not isolation. That vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the foundation of true courage. That love, real love, means being willing to sacrifice everything for someone else." He paused, looking at the memorial stone they had placed. Rex, badge 1847, faithful servant, loyal friend, true hero. "A lot of people ask me what made Rex special," Michael continued. "Was it his intelligence, his training, his courage? And yes, he had all those things in abundance. But what made Rex truly remarkable was his heart, his capacity for devotion, his absolute, unshakable loyalty to those he loved." Michael's voice broke. "He saved my life that night in the warehouse. But more importantly, he saved me from a life of isolation, of pushing people away, of being alone. He taught me that having someone to fight for makes you stronger, not weaker. And I will carry that lesson for the rest of my life." He knelt and placed a badge on the memorial stone, his own badge, retired now as he had transitioned to training new K9 handlers, passing on the lessons Rex had taught him. "Thank you, partner," Michael whispered, "for everything." Years later, when people ask Michael about his legendary K9 partner, he always tells the same story, not about the dramatic rescues or the dangerous apprehensions or the lives saved, though Rex did all those things and more. Instead, he tells about an ordinary evening, a few months before Rex's death. They were at the park, just the two of them. Rex was moving slowly, his arthritis making it hard to run, but he still wanted to play. Michael threw a tennis ball not far, just a gentle toss. Rex walked to it, picked it up carefully, and brought it back, his tail wagging despite the obvious effort. They did this for an hour, just throwing and retrieving, moving at Rex's pace, enjoying each other's company. No urgency, no danger, no purpose beyond being together. "That's what I remember most," Michael always says. Not the heroics, though those were real, but the quiet moments, the simple joy of being with someone who loved you unconditionally. That's what Rex gave me. That's That's his real legacy. And in his office, in a place of honor, sits a photo from that day. An aging German shepherd with a gray muzzle, sitting in the sunshine, a tennis ball at his feet, looking at the camera with eyes that still sparkled with joy and intelligence and love. Beneath it, a simple inscription: Rex, my partner, my hero, my friend. The end, in memory of all police K9s who serve with courage, loyalty, and an unwavering commitment to protecting those they love. Their service is a badge of honor that shines eternal.